He's amazing, a prolific writer. It is so awesome that he has put all of his comedic exploits and cultural criticism and I don't know what to call it. It's like white people bashing. I mean, I don't know if it's even that, but it's a beautiful way that we all can kind of commiserate and talk about the things that are happening in the world in a way that has some levity, that we can analyze the things that hurt us, but kind of not sink with it. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what humor does. It gives us a lightness, even as we're processing. And so it's such a joy that we have Damon Young here sitting with us. We're going to have a beautiful conversation. I don't like to have clinical conversations with authors. I like to have a conversation, like real talk and dig in. And this is a call and response. This is a group effort. So I'm going to ask some questions. I have some prompts, and he's going to answer them. And from there, if you have some thoughts, some ideas, questions that you want to ask, then you guys ask questions too. And we're gonna have a conversation. Just the only thing that I ask is that because this room is kind of packed, so I ask that we were respectful of each other. And I don't know, are we doing debates? Is that what we have to? No. But we're just gonna keep it organic. We're gonna keep it fun and light, and we're gonna lead with love. And that is living our vision every day. You got that? Write that down. So we're gonna start with the title. What does not kill you makes you blacker. And if you look, he has on his arm, what does not kill you make it. Don't be all shy.
I'm not being shy. I mean, this is intentional.
Oh, was it? Okay. Look at this. And it goes all the way up. Show how far up it goes.
It goes all the way up. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot happening right there, yeah.
So how did you come up with the title?
First, thank you.
Oh yeah,
pause. Thank you, Philadelphia, for coming out tonight. This is it's funny when you talk to people who aren't familiar with the state of Pennsylvania, and tell them from Pittsburgh, they're like, "Oh, you mean Philadelphia?"
No.
As if the cities are like right next to each other. I got to explain to them. It's like Pittsburgh actually, it's a closer drive to Toronto than it is to Philly. It is. That's yeah, you can get to Toronto quicker than you get to Philly. I mean, I'm closer to Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Kentucky, all that.
We call it Pennsyltucky.
Yeah, we call it that too. And so this is actually my third time in this city.
Really?
Yeah, in my life. So, and again, I appreciate you all coming out tonight and listening to us talk about this book that has my face on it. So thank you. It does have my. That wasn't my decision.
Okay.
That was an artistic director's decision.
I feel like they did a good job. It looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I when I saw the cover, I was expecting just the words, not actually my face and my glasses and my beard on it. But I think
all of your signatures,
all of the signatures right there. But again, thank you, Envy. Thank you for using the term commiserate also, because I don't use that often in just my lexicon, so I appreciate you saying that, because I wasn't trying to pronounce it, and I'm glad you did it.
Okay.
And okay, so the title. Oh, and thank you, Uncle Bobbie, too.
Yeah.
For hosting this, for being this space in this city that just brings just so much joy, so much honesty, so much culture. I know it's relatively new and it's a Philadelphia institution, but trust me when I say that this resonates nationally.
Yeah.
That it's a national force.
Yeah.
And when I knew that when I wanted to come to Philadelphia do a thing, I definitely had to stop here and do it here.
Mark paid you to say that, didn't he?
No comment. So about the title. All right, so the original title of the book was actually Nigga Neurosis.
It was what? That is the best thing I heard. Yeah. You said nigga in the roses?
No. Nigga in the roses.
Nigga neurosis.
Neurosis.
Did you know War of the Roses? I thought he...
Well, you know what? Oh, Lord. I repeated. I said that to, I forgot who. It might have been like someone, like someone.
Yes.
I did an interview with, and I told them that, and they wrote down nigga in neuroses.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay. But
so,
nigga neurosis.
Nigga neurosis. See,
Yes.
that's the Pittsburgh. I got a thick tongue, and that's the Pittsburgh in me coming out my bed. But
Okay.
so that was the original title of the book.
Mm-hmm.
That I mean that's a term I kind of coined a few years ago to encapsulate the state of being where you're constantly wondering if a thing happened or didn't happen because you're black.
That's right.
Like, did I get the scholarship because I'm black? Did I not get the scholarship because I'm black? Did I get picked first a pickup because I'm black and I'm tall and they saw me and just assumed that I could hoop, and I can, but did they make that assumption? And sometimes it's more light, like the basketball, situation. Sometimes it's a bit more dark. And so, again, that was the original title.
Yeah.
My agent and I, we sold that proposal to HarperCollins. They loved it. Editor loved it.
They loved that title?
They loved that title. My editor, who is a white woman at HarperCollins, loved that title.
Let's unpack that.
Right.
And then she talked to her people at Barnes & Noble. And her people at Amazon. And they're like, we love Damon. We can't wait for his book. We're excited, and we could carry a book with nigga on the title and on the cover, but I don't know if we could promote. I don't know if we could put nigga on like 72-point font, like banner ads on the site, And so I thought of a different title, and I was actually I was going to Essence Fest last summer, doing a thing there, and was working on one of the drafts, working on some of the dialogue, and that just came to me.
Okay.
And as soon as I got off the plane, I immediately Googled it just to make sure that it didn't already exist. Like it wasn't someone's Twitter handle or like someone's, played it, never made it out of the basement or something like that. And I saw that it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So boom, it ended up being a title of the book. Yeah, and it's an obvious play on what doesn't kill you makes you blacker, or what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I feel like we all should know by now that respectability is a fucking fraud.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you need to say that whole sentence. One more time. Wait, say that whole thing again.
What doesn't kill you makes you blacker.
No, I got that part.
Oh, respectability is a fucking fraud.
It's a fucking fraud.
Assimilation, like all the shit that we, have been convinced.
Yeah.
Are going to, make us appear more human.
Yeah.
We're not even like human. More human. Like actually people worthy of citizenship, of full citizenship.
Existence.
Existent, yeah.
Not I guess as a whole person rather than 3/4.
And so we and I think that, particularly now, like anyone who still has doubts about that, who felt like post-racial E after Obama was elected and saw what happened after, who came after Obama. And I just think that, in order to be a black American and really like survive and thrive in America, you have to embrace blackness. And not attempt to subvert it, not attempt to persevere past it as if it's a thing you just persevere past. Not
you have to be all in.
You have to be all in. And this title is just an encapsulation of that mindset.
Yeah.
Where, America is trying to kill us from the moment we're born. From the moment we're conceived, because we see our infant mortality rates and all. I mean, from the moment we're conceived, and if we made it this far, then it's because we embrace being black.
Would you agree? Do you feel like that? Like just trying to hide from it actually makes it worse? You feel that way?
Yeah.
Interesting. I never thought of it that way. Because I grew up, like my parents, it was different. It was kind of like just kind of fit in. You know what I'm saying? Don't stand out too much. Just straighten your hair. You know what I mean? And it's different now. Was that your experience too growing up?
Now, my parents kind of instilled in me in a pretty early age that, I remember my dad, and it's in the book, my dad telling me, Martin Luther King was killed in a suit. And it's, again, nothing against suits. I have some nice suits that I wear sometimes. I'm not wearing one today, but I like suits too. But just the idea that putting on a suit or any other sort of behavioral deodorant that you could wear.
I feel like I need to take notes. Behavioral deodorant.
Any other sort of behavioral deodorant that you could wear like that, like that's gonna like if a person feels that way about you, then there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing you could do to change how they feel. There's nothing you could wear. There's nothing you could say. There's no way you can talk. There's no like Spotify playlist you can delete. Start listening to Taylor Swift. I mean, there's nothing that you can do.
The beginning story.
Yeah.
Did y'all read the beginning story? The introduction story? Where he's yeah. Are these the characters in your head? Or these?
I guess so. And there's just nothing you could do. So, with that in mind, I mean, and again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm like anti-achievement, anti-aspiration, anti-ambition or anything like that. But I just don't want our ambitions, our achievements, our hopes, our aspirations to be connected to how white people perceive us.
That's important. Because if we're going to achieve something, I think that's a very important distinction to make. But I also think we're in a time where we can have these kinds of conversations. Where before it was really and truly about survival. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now we can self-actualize more in a different way than we have before. And so being able to self-actualize as a standard is a luxury.
Oh no, I agree 100%, and I even recognize that I have the privilege of having my own platform.
Yes, that's right.
You know what I mean? I have this sort of occupation where I get paid to be me.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe a person who works in a more corporate sort of job.
It's different.
Has different expectations, and you want to keep your job.
Yeah.
You want to, get paid. I mean, I understand that. And so you said earlier about how you alluded to, about how this unapologetic blackness, it's, I'm not going to say it's trendy, but but it's become hashtag. It's become much.
Don't touch my.
Yeah, it's become more popular, I guess, to vocalize that now, and but I think that people who do that still, have to recognize that some people maybe have it easier than others.
Agreed. It is a luxury,
and I recognize that too, and even. I'm saying that, and it's not without self-critique, because as I mentioned earlier, all right, you're a black person, and anyone who tries to create any sort of art, whether it's books, music, TV, writing, whatever, drawing, painting, there's this idea that you want to subvert the white gaze, right?
Yes.
And you hear that's like. That is just driven home just repeatedly, subvert the white. In fact, I even spoke about it earlier. About not wanting to appease white people. But as I even sit up here with this black ass book, with my black ass face on the title, I'm even wearing all black today. That was coincidental.
I'm like everything.
I have a white editor.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't Googled Harper or Collins, but I'm assuming.
That's right.
I'm assuming that that both of them are white too.
Yeah.
So, am I still subverting as much as I believe that I am if the gatekeepers in my industry are still white?
Wow.
And that's a question I don't have an answer to that one, because I don't know.
Well, I guess the question then can become, is the goal really to subvert the white gaze, or is it to be allowed to be as full as we can be as Black people and whoever we are, and be all the things that Black people can be, and not have to be a monolith, and so that the gaze as a thing becomes irrelevant?
Well, and I think that's the right answer right there, where you I think that if you are going to subvert like this gaze, this perpetual gaze, this perpetual existence of gatekeepers, then the way to do it is to be as authentically you as you can be.
Boom.
And as if you are a person who creates things, create a thing that's as true to your experience.
That's right.
As it can be. That's as transparent, as vulnerable. That exposes you. But again, that exposure is necessary because I feel like that's where the humanity is. And that's right. That's where the connectivity is.
That's right.
When people see you getting vulnerable, when people see you transparent, and not everyone can relate to being a 40-year-old ex-college ball player from Pittsburgh, but everyone has had fear.
That's right.
Everyone's had anxiety. Everyone's been self-conscious about a thing. And so, again, just to answer your question, I think that the best way to subvert is to be as true and as real and as honest with yourself, with our experiences, with our culture, with our language, with all the things that make us as possible.
What I love so much about your work is that, well, I'm going to say this. I love the evolution. I love people's stories as much as I love, I believe what you put in, that's what you get out. And there's this beautiful richness that comes with the story, the evolution of the story. You never end up where you started. If you do, you're doing it wrong. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk a little bit about how you got here. You started.
I caught an Uber. That's how I got. You mean before?
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you started with a blog, and now you are a thought leader. Is that what the plan was?
I don't consider myself to be a thought leader. I'm just a Pittsburgh.
Do you think he's a thought leader?
I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you. I didn't pay y'all to say that, so thank you for saying that. But I still consider myself a Pittsburgh nigga with a blog and a book now. Like, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, perhaps I'm perceived as being like a thought leader or whatever, but I don't know. I don't see myself as that. I see myself just as a person who is struggling.
And that's why you're a thought leader.
Like the rest of us.
That's
to
right.
Just find themselves and be transparent and be honest and tell my story. And also, I've been fortunate enough to have a space, a platform, where I can allow other people to tell their stories too.
Yeah.
And to share their thoughts. But yeah, we started VSB in 2008. It was myself, Panama Jackson, and we had a third person, Liz Burr, who's no longer with us. She's not dead. She's just not. She's just doing other things. She's fine. She's healthy. I need to stop saying she's no longer with us because that connotation.
Boom.
Yeah, and started in 2008, and at that time I was working at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. I was running a program out of school business there. And in 2009, the program shut down. And it's like around the time the recession hit, and our program relied on philanthropy, on people giving us money. On people giving us money to, to keep, sustain. And when that started to dry up, then everyone lost their jobs, and the program shut down.
Yeah.
And So I was at a bit of a crossroads where, I know I had this blog, and I had a desire to write for a living. But I still had this job, and I took a couple other interviews, in other similar academic sort of offices, and I didn't get any of those jobs. And so I became very hyper-focused on building VSB and on getting better at writing because I was desperate.
Ain't that nothing? That's how that's how it starts.
And again, I had ambitions, I had aspirations for that, but what really fueled that, the gasoline was desperation.
Yeah.
It was me recognizing, like, what, I need to get better at this, because if I don't, then how else am I going to pay my rent? How else am I going to make my car payments? How else am I like going to brunch?
Yes.
How am I going to get, bottomless? I don't want to just get bottomless. So I'm going to continue with the bottomless. Shit. I'm grown. And so that, again, was a primary driver, with building VSB and with, and also, like I said earlier, just getting better.
Yeah.
And reading and rewriting and doing more reading and rewriting and just getting to a point where, okay, someone's going to pay me to write now.
Nice.
And I finally got to that point, like in around 2011, 2012. And then
That's about right. You put your 10,000 hours in.
Yeah, the 10,000, and then started.
But there was a momentum that you built a community.
Yes, and we built a community, and there are people who started off in the comments at VSB, who are now writing for the Atlantic. Like Shamira Ibrahim is, just published her first piece over there now,
nice.
And has written for BuzzFeed. There's another.
Yeah, the comments section of VSB is like incredible. Like it's just as entertaining as the actual piece.
There's another vet of the comments, Natalie, who's in the back, who has gone on to bigger and better things. She's probably upset that I shouted her out right now. So we've been fortunate enough to build almost like a pipeline.
That's right.
Where we have this space, we have this platform, and along with our own voices that have been amplified, we've been able to amplify other people.
Has it been cathartic for you?
In what way?
To have the space to be able to tell the truth in a way that can be, offensive to people who don't want to hear. You know what I'm saying? I remember reading a piece that you did where you talked about how white folks respond to your work specifically, and the hate mail and all of that stuff. And you were able to take really sketchy circumstances that would really be frightening if you think about it from some standpoints, and you're able to make light in a way. You're almost like, of course, you make light in a way that takes the nonsense of it and puts it on its ear. That could be considered cathartic, because you're wielding power in a way that's not traditional. You're not going, hey, look, you suck. You're basically going, look how ridiculous you are, and it changes. What is that? Who is that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's the man. We're talking about white people, and they're calling.
They're calling. Do you understand where I'm getting it? Like you're taking you own your power in a way that traditionally would be maybe frightening. Does that make sense, what I'm asking? Because lynching is real. Let's not act like it isn't. Let's not act like, black folks historically that actualize their power were not a threat in society. And so one of the things, I think it's powerful that's one of the things that's coming up now. Reparations is a conversation is having. If you've been to the African American Museum in DC, they have a whole section on lynching. We're actually having conversations about things that are very touchy. And they're painful, and it's complicated to have to be able just in conversation be like, oh, you know, not that you do that, but it's like they're complicated conversations to have for everyone to be able to have. And I feel like one of the treasures about very smart brothers is that you had those conversations and you had them in a way that was jolting and jarring, but at the same token it gives a sense of peace. You spoke in a language that we all could understand, and through comedy too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm asking if having that, wielding that power was cathartic for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll take it. Cathartic in a way, maybe therapeutic also. You know, and it's funny, like, just, you know, I know you asked about VSB, but I'm going to, you know, pivot really quickly to the book. I've been on tour, been in a bunch of different cities in front of people, and one of the recurring questions is my concerns about white people, like whether white people will read it, how white people will feel about the book,
right,
feel about the title, whatever. And I don't give a shit. Like but the thing is, it's not that I don't give a shit about how people feel, but it's more like my thoughts are more about black people. Yes. Like in terms of, I hope I got the language right. Yes. I hope I got the jokes right, the references right, the tone, like all the construction.
I love that.
Like and again, I'm not going to say that I've never written with that gaze that we spoke of and that you just asked about, just like just being hyper cognizant of it in a moment. But with this is more like I just hope that I got things right.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and yeah, there's some very personal, very specific parts of my life that, of course, no one's going to know if I got them right except for me. But there are other like references, like I have a whole riff on Love Jones.
Oh, nice.
The third, you know, like the whole third paragraph or third chapter, like the first half of it starts talking about Love Jones, and other like cultural references and other jokes.
You talk a little bit about economic insecurity too.
Yeah, and that's a recurring thread too. And so I just want to make sure that when black people read this book, that they're like, oh yeah, he gets it. He got it.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the other themes in the books.
So yeah, you know, the thread of economic insecurity is a recurring theme in the book. I write about it because it's a real theme that I've experienced my entire life. I mean, I've been fortunate enough now, you know, just in the last 4 or 5 years, that my financial circumstances have changed pretty drastically. Yeah. Like I don't quite have Oprah money or Stedman or Gail money, but I definitely, like, if...
Or adjacent?
Or, like, if I were to get a burger somewhere and it comes with fries, I can get the upcharged side salad.
Nice.
You know, I can do that. And I can even get shrimp on that salad, too. Like, I have shrimp.
Nice. You got shrimp
money.
I
have shrimp upcharged. I have shrimp upcharged money. Shrimp upcharged money right now.
Now, are they real shrimp or are they like the little shrimp?
You know, I prefer not to answer that question. And so, yeah, with this shrimp upcharged money status that I have now, that hasn't always been the reality for me. In the book, I talk about stretches where, you know, I feel it feels I don't know, inauthentic to say homeless, because we lived with my grandmother, and this is back when I was in college and I was away from school. I was away at school, and then I came home and I realized that my parents lost the house that we were living in, that they were renting, and they lived with my grandmother. And so I don't want to say that we were homeless because we had a home. Yeah. But stuff like that it wasn't uncommon for us. It wasn't uncommon for us to struggle. It wasn't, I know what the best coin is to get the tape, that when they put the eviction notice on the door, you use a quarter instead of a nickel because the quarter gets the tape off easier. Like that's just something I remember because that's something I experienced. And so I feel like I'm dealing with like this PTBD, which is post-traumatic brokenness disorder.
Traumatic brokenness disorder.
And where that feeling of economic insecurity, even though that isn't my reality in the same way it is. It's not my reality now the same way it was then. I still feel it.
Yeah.
Like I still feel like shit could be snatched away at any minute. You know, and just 7 years ago now, I remember my car getting repossessed. And this happened because of a series of late payments from a publication that I will not name at the moment, and that just started. You know, when something like that happens, when you get paid late from somewhere, you do this like internal calculus. Well, it's like, you know what? I need to pay my phone bill because they're going to turn that off immediately. I need to pay my cable bill because I need my Wi-Fi because I need the internet to work. I need to pay my car insurance because if I get stopped, and you know I'm a black man, so I'm going to get stopped. If I don't have insurance, then they're going to take the car. But if I'm late for a month with my car payment, they're not going to come take the car. Well, exactly. and again, those are just the little negotiations
That's right.
you have to do with yourself when you have to make those sorts of decisions. And then that 1 month stretched into 3. And then by that 3rd month, you know, I'd go outside one morning and my car's gone. I thought it was stolen. Call the cops. You're like, nah, nigga, come on. You know what happened. All them calls you've been screening. You know the deal. And so I ended up getting it back. I lied to a couple friends that I ended up borrowing money from, and I told them that the car got taken because of unpaid parking tickets.
Okay.
Because I felt that was less embarrassing than the truth. But even today, till like right now, if I'm laying in bed and you hear that really distinct beep,
Oh Lord have mercy. Yeah.
of like a large truck
That's right.
backing up in the street, my fight or flight spikes, my anxiety, my adrenaline, all of that, because I think it's a tow truck coming to take my car.
Wow.
And my car's paid for right now. Like I know that's not. I hope that's not going to happen now, but that feeling still persists.
Wow.
And the thing is like I don't want it to go away.
Why?
I feel like because it can go away. I mean, it can all be gone next week, tomorrow, today. You know,
You had a health scare.
I had a health scare too. Yeah, and it's like I think that when you get some sort of status economically, maybe you get a degree or a certain degree, you get a certain salary, you get a certain savings, you get a certain credit score. If, let's say that adversity is a tsunami. You know, financial adversity is a tsunami. And people who are poor, people who are broke, live right on the coast. So when a tsunami hits, they get wiped out immediately. Okay? And I think that we sometimes tend to think that we're way up, like, in the mountain somewhere. You know, where we could, like, see and, like, I see what's happening. Them niggas down there, that's not my problem. And the reality is that, you know, maybe it gives us a little cushion, but we're just a couple blocks away.
Wow.
So if the tsunami's bad enough, it's going to get us too.
Yeah. So are you afraid that you're going to lose your edge? Is that what that is? Like, do you see your platform as the voice of the people, and you don't want to get too far removed?
I'm not worried about that as much. I'm not worried in terms of like my work. I'm worried. I just don't want to have like a nigga wake up call where I forget who I am. Ooh. And something happens that reminds me of it, and it happens violently, and it happens in a way that I'm not prepared for.
Wow.
And you know, I have a wife, I have 2 kids. I literally can't afford not to be hyper cognizant of who I am, of who we are, of what this country is.
Wow.
And of what and how easily, I mean, America could just roll up one day like Thanos and just snap his fingers, and it's all, you know, and it's all gone. So, you know, even with whatever success I have, you know, I hope it doesn't go away, but I will never not be aware that it can.
Okay. So some of the other themes in the book, you talk about, you just mentioned that you have 2 kids now.
I have 2 kids, yeah.
And you talk about the birth of your daughter in the book.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. How are your kids changed your point of view of things?
They haven't really changed my point of view, to be honest. They've given me more to write about.
Okay.
They've given me more, lighter wallets, a lighter wallet sometime, and more to think about, but that haven't really impacted my sensibility writing-wise. Not immediately. You know, if you ask me the same question in 10 years, maybe I'll have a different answer. But I don't, or maybe they have and I haven't realized it. That's a possibility. That maybe they have impacted my work and my writing in a way, and I just haven't realized it at the moment. But so the book concludes with a chapter about my daughter. Her name is Zoe. She's 3 years old now, and it's a combination of just all of the angst, the anxieties, the insecurities, the self-consciousnesses that I talk about in this book. And you know, I had this little girl, and the question I asked myself, the question I asked in this chapter is, how do I convince her that she could be whatever and whoever she wants to be, while I'm fully aware that America is what it is. And also recognizing that the world that she's going to live in, the world that she lives in, it's going to be more difficult than the world out, because, you know, she'll have to deal with sexism along with the racism, misogyny along with the racism.
That's something.
So,
well, hopefully by the time she's old enough, we will have cleared some of that out.
No.
You know what I'm saying? We have time. We want to make some room for the youngins. Y'all don't look convinced.
I mean, I'm not convinced that America is going to change enough in order to have that sort of, you know, I just, you know, I feel like for anyone to change, you know, the very first step is recognition that there's a problem, and we're not even at that point yet. You know, some of us who are impacted more violently with America, but you know, America by and large doesn't realize how fucked up it is.
Well, what about critical mass? You know what I'm saying? Do you think that we can, you know, a consensus can be reached with the folks that are woke enough that we can move it forward? Like the monkeys in the jungle with the sweet potatoes?
I don't want to be too pessimistic here. I'm sorry. But I mean, you know, this is a problem that white people created. And it's a problem that they need to solve.
That's what Toni Morrison said.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that all of the gathering and protesting and marching, like, we should continue doing that, outrage, you know, just subverting, all of that, resisting. But if America is to ever be the thing that you mentioned it maybe might be when my daughter's older. That's on white people. That's on white people talking to other white people and convincing, like, you know, just how I believe that, you know, when we talk about patriarchy, we talk about misogyny, sexism, I really believe that's on guys. And talking to other guys and holding ourselves accountable, you know, and not waiting for, and not expecting women to do all of the labor with that. And I just think it's on white people. You know, this is a problem that they started, that they created, and that this is a problem that they need to fix.
That's right. No, agreed.
So anyway, the chapter with my daughter, you know, it asked that question. And it also asks a question that I think a lot of parents ask themselves, where, you know, you want your child to have all the good parts of you and none of the bad. Almost like some sort of Instagram filter where they only see like the good angles, you only get like the good characteristics.
Angles!
Yeah. And how do you do that if the good and the bad very often come from the same place? Like, how do you make sure that, okay, I'm only, like for instance, I've always been pretty impervious to like peer pressure, like a person who kind of just did their own things. I've always been really independent, whatever, and I consider that to be a good quality. And I want to pass it on to my daughter. But I also have struggled sometimes with being assertive. And sometimes that independence came because I just didn't assert myself to do what everyone else was doing. So it kind of looks like independence, but really I'm just chilling because I was nervous.
Oh.
And so, and that, and some of that anxiety that has come about because of that feeling has given me acid reflux. Like, I take Nexium and I get endoscopies and colonoscopy. I was getting colonoscopies before I even turned 40.
Wow.
You know, just to, you know, make sure everything in there was okay. And so, how do I pass on that good part, which I believe the independence is, but I don't want her to be so independent or so like whatever that she gives herself acid reflux like I have.
Wow.
And that last chapter asked those questions about just me as a parent, and then segues into the larger question about her status in America. And, you know, as a father of this little black girl, how do I, you know, what do I tell her? What do I teach her? And it does end on an optimistic note.
Really?
It does. It does end on an optimistic note. Because I think that if you make a conscious decision to have children, then there is some optimism in you. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we did. Yeah. And I ended by basically saying, you know, I don't understand how it's possible that you could be this while America is this, but I know it's possible. I don't understand how it works. Just like I don't understand how the sun, how the sun works, how black holes work. I just can't wrap my mind around that concept. But I know that they exist.
Yeah.
I know that we get heat from the sun. And so I know that you can be whoever and whatever you want to be, even while this behemoth is going to do everything it can to prevent you from doing that.
Okay. So you have 2 kids?
Yeah.
A boy and a girl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have that same feeling about your son?
Yeah, I do. I do.
He was like, yep. We'll leave that right there.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you talk about in the book is your mom passing.
Yeah.
And you really wanted to talk about that today. So was that a signifier in your work too?
Not a signifier in my work. Yes. Just because of how total her presence was.
Wow.
And how total her loss has been.
Wow.
And just for context,
Okay.
it'll be 6 years in October since she passed. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. A year before she ended up passing away. They gave her 6 months, and she, took dose to always 6 more, and then succumbed to the disease. And the title of the chapter where I talk about this is "Living While Black Killed My Mom."
Why?
So when I think about my mom, I think about those years before she was diagnosed. Years, not months, but years, when she would complain about back pain, about stomach aches, about headaches. And she would go to the doctor and tell her to take some Advil, take less Advil, drink less pop, get more exercise. I mean, and those are all, I guess, good things in a certain context that you should be doing, but I can't help but wonder if instead of this working class black woman, if she were a white woman, if her pain would have been taken more seriously.
Wow. Do you think those were, are they saying that those were symptoms, that those were precursors that were?
I mean, I can go on WebMD and you see symptoms of that, that disease, and all of those things are, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's really where that neurosis that I was speaking about earlier really persists, because
yes,
I know about Serena Williams, for instance.
yes,
Who, as many of us know, almost died in childbirth or after childbirth. Where she's in the maternity ward or whatever, and she's telling the nurses or doctors or whoever, like, yo, there's something wrong with me, there's something off. I just trust me, there's something wrong with me. And they weren't believing her. They're like, you're fine, you just had a baby,
and she's like, no, I know what blood clots are. Yeah. Can you work this out? And they're like, no, son. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this back and forth continued for, I don't know, a day, 2 days, whatever. Then they finally took whatever tests they needed to take, and saw that, if they would have let her home, she would have died. Mm-hmm. And this is Serena fucking Williams. Mm-hmm. Like one of the richest, most famous, one of the greatest athletes ever. Like, if anyone knows her body, if anyone knows what's happening inside of her, then it would be this world-class athlete.
Yeah.
And if someone like her still isn't going to be trusted, still isn't going to be believed, then what about my mom? What about my wife? What about my daughter?
There's such a sadness. Like, I wanted to ask you if you thought this book is a love letter to blackness, but I feel like there's like a bittersweetness that I feel like, now that I'm thinking about it, just kind of is the thread that binds all your work together. There's this bittersweetness, like you use the humor as your tears almost.
Well,
does it feel like that? Does it feel like that?
Mm-hmm. I didn't want to flatten any parts of myself when writing this book. And what I mean by that is that there are parts in there that are meant to be like laugh out loud funny.
Yes.
Like shit you're going to read and like throw the book. That's like
we almost did in the car.
That's the intended response.
Yeah.
There are also parts in it that are intended to devastate. There are also parts in it that are critiques of masculinity, of white supremacy, of capitalism, of whatever. It's a very Pittsburgh book. There's a lot of basketball in this book, maybe too much basketball.
Okay.
There's a reference in the 3rd page in the intro where I talk about the relationship between prayer and masturbation. I mean, so there's a lot.
I'm getting a visual.
Yeah. So there's. Yeah, people. I see people over here like, what?
You made me spit on my king.
And so I wanted to create something that I guess, I don't know, that showed the full me. You know, I laugh a lot. I make jokes a lot. I also have shit that makes me sad. I also have shit that
Oh my God, it sounds like you're a whole person.
I have stuff that I'm deeply self-conscious about, and that's in there. I have stuff that, you know, that gives me angst and anxiety. There's stuff that I'm still scared shitless that people are going to actually read. That I'm still like, holy shit, I can't believe I put this in there. And people, like, I'm going to a thing in DC on Friday at Mahogany Books. They're having like a book club meeting. So I've done book talks throughout the tour, but this is my first book club where everyone in there is going to
have read
the book already. And so I am like, holy shit, someone's going to ask me about that masturbation chapter in the book club. And so, I mean, shit, I put it in the book. So it you know, I'm ready to be asked about it. But, and so, anyway, I just wanted to create a thing that exhibited, I guess, the fullness of my life and of my experience.
And your humanity.
And my humanity too. Like, I didn't want to write just a funny book, or just a dark book, or just a this is why white people are fucked up book, or just a Pittsburgh book,
yeah,
or just a basketball book. Why not put them all in the same book?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now this is the part where you ask questions. You have a question?
Yeah. So as I was reading the book, I was thinking about the people that you were writing about. Have your relationships with any of them changed because of it?
Can you speak up? Did everyone hear you?
As I was reading the book, I was thinking about the people you were writing about and how maybe your relationships have changed because of what you've written.
About them people?
Like the basketball people.
That's a good question. Thank you for asking. And so what most of the people that I write about in this book, you know, particularly people I'm very close to.
Did you change names to protect the guilty?
I changed some names. My wife, there's a chapter about how we met and how we got together. My dad is probably, if I'm the lead actor, he's the main supporting actor in this book. Like, he's, you know, all through this book. Some of my closest friends, they all got heads up like, hey, I plan on writing about this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. Let me know if you're cool with it. And everyone,
even if you aren't, it's still going in.
Nah,
so good luck with that.
Everyone was really supportive.
Okay.
And then after I actually wrote it, I went back to him again. It's like, you know what, here it is. You know, speak now, forever hold your peace. And everyone, you know, still was, you know, just supportive. I've had great support from the people in my life about this and because I believe that they trust me with what I would write, and, you know, that I wouldn't write anything that was egregious or sensationalistic, that I would tell the truth. And also too, I save my harshest critiques for myself.
Ooh. Ooh.
And
that's good.
And I just think that when you do that, that gives you, like, if I wrote a book where I'm just taking pot shots at all these other people in my life, yeah, of course people are going to have an issue with that. But if you are even more critical of yourself than you are with other people, then, you know, if the people support you and you're not saying anything that's like crazy, then yeah. Now the basketball people, I'm not as close to them, and so they're reading the book at the same time you all are, and
they're like, "Oh my God, I'm famous! Look, Damon wrote about me."
I don't know if that'll be the reaction after reading. And again, some of them I'm cooler with than others, and I know they'll be fine with it. They might feel a little like, but oh well.
Hi.
Hello.
I haven't read your book yet. I did purchase it. I'm looking forward to reading it. But just from your essence, I have a question. It's not fully formed yet, but I'm going to try to ask it. You come across as like an introvert, and did you feel like you had to put aside some of those introverted qualities in order to help and tell your true story and become your authentic self in order to help the community?
We ask deep questions in this
all right, so to answer the first part of your question, definitely. Like, if you're into like the Myers-Briggs or whatever,
Yes.
I'm an INTJ, which is like the introvert.
Yeah. That's what I.
Yeah.
That's what I picked it
Okay.
up.
And so yeah, writing this book and putting so like, again, I'm still shocked at some of the shit that's in here. And doing that and just being like, you know what? Here you go. Read this. This is it. It still scares the shit out of me.
That's how you know you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But another recurring theme throughout the book, and particularly with, you know, the conversations I have and the critiques of masculinity and how we define it and how we define ourselves and all that, is the idea of performance. Where there's, I think for so many of us, and I'm speaking specifically about black men, like this hyper hetero ideal that we are aspired to reach. And if you don't reach that, if you're not as cool, like, okay, so if you follow the NBA, Damian Lillard from the Blazers hit this crazy, practically half-court buzzer beater to beat the Thunder last week. And there's a meme going around of him where everyone is just going crazy, and he's just like what? And that's who you are kind of taught to be.
Yeah.
Like just hyper cool, just hyper swag, like just with it. Nothing phases you. Nothing bothers you. You know, you could walk in any room and just, you know, I got this. I'm good. You know, and like 3 people actually meet that ideal. Like, I guess Dame Lillard, Denzel. Well, not even Denzel, but like Denzel's tear and glory, because that was the most swagged out tear ever. But the rest of us are
We're
there.
human, yeah. We emote. We have range.
And so the space between the aspiration and reality is filled with performance. And, you know, I did a lot of performing as a young person, even as a young adult, even as a not so young adult. And one of the things that I want people to, you know, to possibly come away with after they read this book is just to recognize the fallacy of that, and just recognize that you don't have to perform. And also too, when you are experiencing those things, those anxieties, those doubts, those self-consciousnesses, whatever, there can be a claustrophobia where you start to believe that it's singular, like you're the only, like you see everyone else all cool and with it and doing what, you know, you believe you've been believe that you're, supposed to be able to do. And if you, I guess what I'm trying to say is, by writing these things about myself, I would hope that like a 15 or 25-year-old me could read this and recognize that, you're not alone.
Yeah.
In fact, you have a lot more company than you believe. And even as a 40-year-old looking back, even some of the people who I thought had it all together, they were performing too.
Wow.
That's
a whole word.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just did a better job of hiding their sins.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Go ahead, baby.
I love your vulnerability, and I think that is a part of evolution, as you described. I find the title of your book so befitting to the stories, specifically the story about your mom, the story about Serena, the stories of experiences that I've had. And I think about the book that I'm reading now, Dr. Eberhard, talking about bias, and illicit bias. And you move away from, is it happening because I'm black? But then it is happening because I am black, and I'm male, and I'm gay, or I'm over 50. And it's confirmation because it's based on science, it's based on research. What's so prophetic about your title is that it personifies, if it hasn't killed you, you're moving more into yourself and away from yourself. So what did you lose by not going with your first title?
Oh, shit. I did not.
I love y'all.
I did not see that. Did not see that coming.
We are asking no, you know what I'm saying? Depth.
Okay, wow.
I love y'all.
What did I lose? Fuck, I honestly, as objective as I can be, because no one could be purely, completely objective, I think this is a better title than the original one. I think it's more encapsulating. It's the original title was a thing that a part of me was like this 6-year-old who was looking forward to watching white people trip over themselves, trying to pronounce it. Like I had this
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
And then talk to their black friends like, have you read this new Damon?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I had this.
It's called N-word.
Like I had this fantasy in my head of like, it was always Anderson Cooper. Like I'm Anderson Cooper, and he's like, so your book, Ninja. Can I say Ninja? Ninja Neurosis. Tell me about it. So there was that part of it too. To be honest, and again, maybe I'm probably going to think about this question. I'm definitely going to think about this question when I get home, and not even when I get home. When I get back to my hotel tonight.
I feel like there's going to be a whole blog about it. Thank you.
I don't think I lost anything by choosing this title, because I feel like this title.
Well, you didn't
better.
lose Barnes and Noble.
I didn't lose Barnes and Noble. I didn't lose Amazon. I feel like this title's better. I feel like again, it's more encapsulating of experience. It doesn't have to be explained. Like even nigga neurosis, when I say that out loud, even black people are like, okay, what?
Nigga neurosis?
Where are you? Yeah, nigga neurosis. But you know what? I feel like I'm gonna have to table that question to come back to it because I've never thought about that, and yeah, I'll have to think about it now.
And then think of what have you gained?
I gained you all. Yeah, I gained everyone here.
So kind of background. We went to the same undergrad.
I see you weren't.
So kind of set
What year?
so I graduated in 2011.
Okay.
To kind of set the baseline for Canisius, for everyone in the room, it's a predominantly white institution, but it also sits in the middle of basically the hood, from Buffalo. So when I found out about your writing, I loved it. My question for you is, considering the fact that you were a sports player at a very predominantly white institution, how did that affect just your overall being? I mean, I know from when I was there was a big divide. It was cultural. We had people who stood up for us. I don't know if you remember Sababu.
Yeah.
Sababu.
Yeah.
So those people were there for us. But then what was your experience? Because I know my experience was very much a striving through every single thing I could. I had to fight for it because it was very white around me. So.
And I was actually there.
So
I did talk there, and Sababu's still there. You know, he looks exactly the same. Like,
he does.
Has not aged in 20 years. But I think that my experience in college really helped me, or gave me a foundation for understanding the idea of privilege. And I say that because I was an athlete, and at Canisius is a small Jesuit school in Buffalo. I think maybe 3,000 or 4,000 students, but we have Division I programs in basketball and volleyball. Wow. And so the basketball players are like, you know, yeah, you could do whatever.
Maybe you had to sneeze that one.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want on campus. And so even though I've never not known that I was black or anything like that, I didn't experience the same things that the regular black students did. And I was able to, get classes early. I was able to get housing assignments early when people had to deal with whoever at the financial aid office and whoever in admissions and whoever, in residence life. I didn't have to deal with any of that. If I didn't get along with a professor, I just got another class.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really until probably like my senior year and afterwards that I started to realize just how starkly different my experience in college was than people who didn't have those privileges, didn't have those luxuries. And so, yeah, I mean, what was your question?
So I guess you leaned into it. I wanted to know what your particular experience was. Did realize that the basketball team was very much supported in ways socially. I mean, I was a scholarship kid, and we had to look for a job and stuff like that, and you kind of felt
a certain type of voyeuristicness where, you're a new basketball player, everyone's eyes are on you, everyone knows who you're sitting with at lunch, everyone knows where you're living at, and just almost feeling like, yeah, we're taken care of. Yes, we have all of these amenities and luxuries, whatever, but we also are kind of like animals in a zoo that people, just come see and, support in a way, and the support is dependent on how well you did, and it's very conditional. And again, I'm not, I hate it. I really do hate it when people compare professional or college athletes to slaves. I like that analogy. I get why people make that analogy, but I just think that that's just a terrible analogy to make. There are other analogies that could be made, but I do think that there is a certain, again, voyeuristicness, and you can't divorce the racial context from that, particularly at these predominantly white institutions, where 50% of black people on campus are athletes, and so yeah, you're getting all this free stuff, but nothing's more expensive than free.
Wow.
Hi, Damon. Long-time VSB reader, non-commenter here, so super excited to follow along with your journey. One of my favorite articles on VSB was "Straight Black Men Are the White People."
Yes.
White
Yes.
And so
Your life changed.
Just wanting to hear, how you've dealt with and confronted misogyny, obviously, in our community, especially now as the father of a young black girl.
Thank you for your support and for reading for so long. So that piece she's referring to is I wrote it, I think about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. Straight black men are white people, black people, and it's a piece where it was an examination of articulation of privilege.
Yes.
And how privilege works, and how, very often you'll hear black women talk about street harassment or sexual harassment or rape or any gender sex-based crime that affects women, and very often our responses are very dismissive, like, well, what you have on, or are you sure it really happened that way, or
that's a compliment,
or let me see some statistics. Is this true? Let me see some stats that actually prove that this thing that you have actually experienced actually happened. And their responses very often mirror their responses that white people have
about
when
racism.
We talk to them about racism. And it's like, oh, is it in your head? Did it really happen that way? Are you sure? Are you making this up? Are you being hypersensitive? And the piece was basically just saying, if we want white people to take us seriously when we're talking about race and racism and its impact, then we can't be hypocrites and not also extend that same empathy or that same understanding or even just that same ear to black women when they're talking about the things that are harming them. And so, the piece, I guess it went viral. It
I feel
was
like
pretty,
that's the understatement.
Yeah, it was pretty well received. I mean, I actually, Bell Hooks actually reached out to me, and I went to her Institute of Berea College, and we like hung out. We had like a salad. Yeah, ate
That's
salad
big, right?
with Bell Hooks, and there were people who were very upset with it. They
Were they mostly
represented
black men?
the most vocal were, and and the thing is, most of the black men who, at least that I saw on the internet, who had read the piece, agreed. And it might have been a reluctant, agreeing, but they were like, you know what, I don't know if I like the title, but you made a good point. And there was a small percentage of men who were very upset by it, and they were very vocal with being upset with it. But overall, I mean, I just I don't know. I've been talking tonight a lot about the idea of privilege and using my platform or whatever, and I made the analogy so that people can understand or have a better understanding of, because I think an analogy, and that's a way that helps me kind of get things, understand things. So it's like, this concept seems to be going over people's heads. So maybe if I make an analogy, then some people will get it. I know not everyone's going to get it, but maybe some people will get
Well,
it.
I feel like that a lot of that is being willfully obtuse.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people get this. I don't feel like it's really that complicated, but I feel that people that
Which one of these?
the both yours.
Okay.
I feel like the people who don't get it don't want to get it because they benefit from it. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense for them to keep it. I mean, it's the same thing with you talk about white people and racism. It benefits them.
Yeah.
And so they get something out of it.
Yeah, like I have one of my friends back home, like he is still like upset about this piece. Like every time like a white man does something in the news, like, oh, so black men are like Kevin Spacey, huh? Or so black men, so black men are like Robert Mueller. Like he just goes like whatever white man is in the news, that's and it's like, yo, the analogy, like if I were to say that Michael Jordan is, or if I were to say that you are the Michael Jordan of making eggs, what would that mean? That would mean that's a weird
You're the
analogy,
best.
but that would mean
You're
that
the
you're the best.
Yeah.
You're the best at making eggs. It doesn't mean that you're making eggs and like dunking from the foul line at the same time you're making the eggs. It's not like a literal analogy. It just means that you're like Jordan. It means that you're the best at this thing.
They get it.
Yeah.
They get it. It's like, but the thing about the ego is when you exposed. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you look at people like that and you just go, you get it, and you just keep moving.
And again, I get it, and I do get some of the reaction, because I feel like, and it's true that black men are demonized, and in the culture, and I think that a lot of brothers saw that and was like, this is just adding to that demonization.
You need to come on my show because we need to unpack that. Because I feel like that is an easy way to not have this conversation.
No, I'm not. I agree with you.
I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I feel like for the broader discussion, in order for us to heal, just in all of this, it's like we have to look at outcomes here. So the outcome is, I hope, that we begin to live and create a world that works for everyone. Like, our being critical of white people is not about, look what you did. It's about being able to have conversations that we all can heal. And part of what's hard about this is that we're having the conversation, but we're having it in such a way that it's, we're walking on eggshells. Are you ready to have it now? And so we want to live in a world that works for everyone. We want to not be able to have to have these conversations. But there's so much that hasn't been healed yet and hasn't been talked about yet, and that's why this persists. So the thing about that is, the broader conversation between men and women is we don't want to have these conversations, but we still do. And by saying, yes, it's true, black men are demonized. Yes, it's true, black women are demonized. But you know what? We still have to have these conversations. Or none of it goes away. You have to face it and fix it.
I mean, I agree with you. Yeah. Face it to fix it. I like that.
Okay, one more question. Who's got it? Who wants it? Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question. When you talked about earlier that at a certain point you had to not give a shit if white people were receptive to your book. So my question is kind of two-part. One is, did you write the book for us? Number one. And number two, when did you say to yourself, I don't give a shit? And I'm asking because I'm a writer as well. I wrote a book, and I remember reaching that point saying, sometimes, and I don't know, I think that also comes along with being black, is you have to say, do I want to sell books, or do I want to talk to my people, or can I do both? So at a certain point I had to say to myself, I just want to write my book, and it's for my people. But when did you just say, I don't care?
Well, thank you for asking that. Now, to answer your first question, I did not write the book for us.
Okay.
I wrote it for me. It's a book that I needed to write. It's a book that I also wanted to read too. And so I am the target audience of this. And then once that extrapolates out, then us. And then once it goes out further, then, if white people want to read too, then yeah, sure. And the thing is,
You have some in here.
Yes. And the thing is saying that I don't give a shit about how white people feel, I want to be very specific with this, because I do recognize that, that there are going to be white people interested in this. And I would like for people who read the book to enjoy the book, regardless of who they are. Be challenged by it, to laugh at it, be hurt by it, whatever. I want them, whoever picks this book up, to not regret their decision of picking it up. When I say I don't give a fuck, what I mean is that
It went from shit to fuck.
yeah. Sorry,
No, it's Bye.
That's how it be sometimes. When I say I don't give a damn, what I mean more is like I'm not going to intentionally create a thing to try to appease.
And
so I do care if people like this, but that care comes. It's like secondary. It's almost separate from the creative process. Like the very first, the most important thing is that I created a thing that I could stand by, that I could look in the mirror and say, you know what?
That's good.
This is what I wanted to do. This is the book I wanted to create. And then after that, then I do want people to pick it up. I want people to buy it. I want people to, whatever. And so it's not that I don't give a fuck shit damn. It's more of
so awesome.
It's more of I didn't allow that to interfere with my creative process.
Nice.
And and the thing is, I actually think that if you do want a universal audience, that the best way to do that is to be as specific to your own life and to your own experience as possible.
That's right.
Because when you intentionally try to create something that appeases everyone and that pleases everyone, then you just create this thing that's just inert, that just sits there and doesn't move or doesn't make anyone react. But when you create something that, like for instance, I don't have the same experience as the characters in Moonlight. That world is not my world. Being in Miami, and that community and just all the things that were unique to that world, that's not me. But I felt that movie. And I felt those characters, and I felt just everything about that movie because it was so specific.
Yeah.
Because it was so deep and so vulnerable and so transparent and just so real to that experience. And I think if you think about the work that has really reached you, the work that has really impacted you, it's been the work that maybe you can't relate, maybe you didn't have the same experience, but you read someone else's experience and they were so real and it was so visceral that you couldn't help but just think about, and thinking about their experience, you start thinking about your own.
Yes.
And one of the first things I said today is like, I know not everyone can relate to being a 40-year-old ex-college basketball player from Pittsburgh, but everyone can relate to the fears, the anxieties, the neuroses, the self-consciousness, some of the humor, the absurdity, the surreal nature of whatever. And so, I just think that the best strategy is to be as you as possible. And and don't. I know it's hard to resist this compulsion, but don't be compelled to flatten yourself.
Oh no, I didn't.
Okay.
Well,
for anyone.
I felt like we had that. I felt that when you said you have to reconcile that with inside yourself. Like this is my baby, this is my thing. I'm gonna put it out, and we'll go from there. But you have to be at peace with the message that you're trying to.
Yes. I love it. And exercise and authenticity.